Hello everyone, Brian here. So a little more progress on Wells Cathedral. All I've done since we spoke last time is glued up the nave to the crossing, and I added on the little additions on either side and their associated roofs, and put together the North Porch here and glued it up. So what's worth saying here? Gluing the nave to the crossing, so when you do that, you have to make sure that you line it up such that the additions here level out on either side just right. And of course you want it to glue evenly all the way to the top, so there's no gap up here, there's no gap on the bottom. So a couple of things I had to do. These are colored in where the roof meets the tower. This is colored in when you get the model. And the roof, depending on how you did it, is not, at least the way I did it, is not always going to align perfectly. So I ended up having, the coloring that Rupert did right here, but I don't know if we can see it here. You might be able to see the slight difference in color here versus here. That's because I had, a yellowish, the color of the cardboard, a yellowish line up across there because the roof was canted slightly to the south. And so what I did first is came in with a pencil, and I just colored that in so that when the roof is sitting against it, you wouldn't notice that. And then what I did is I set the model on its end, and you see here I measured from either side, from here and from here. I measured, and every 10 centimeters I placed a mark so that I had kind of a gauge side to side, and I had a center mark here that I could associate it with. So I laid it up on edge like this, and put some clips here and here to glue that up, and actually here and here as well, and threw a stack of books here in front of it that could all sit on while that glued together. Meanwhile, I came around the front and actually put a little pressure on the tower up here to make sure that I had we can't quite get around here. Let's just rotate it. Put some pressure on the tower here to make sure that I didn't have a seam right there, that it was actually gluing together. So I let that set up, and then came in and put on these additions, which, unlike this side, are actually separate pieces. Glued the roof on top of those, and again I had a similar problem in that, and you can see it here, I forgot to come in here with a pencil and color that in, because you see that the line is not exactly where it should be. So I'll have to go in with a very fine point pencil there and color that in so that that doesn't draw the eye. I did do it, however, on this side. And so you can see I am low on this side by that width there, but colored in, it's not nearly as obvious, and doesn't create a big problem for me. Interestingly, we're perfectly level across the bottom. So again, it's probably the way I scored the card down here that made it a little lower than it should be. So I'll end up, as I put items on here, we'll see if that screws me up as I go forward. And then we had the North Porch here. Now this is a little bit of a complex assembly. You've got the basic square for it. The door arch is cut out. The door itself, the detail here, is a single piece that gets glued up so that it is angled inward and forms an inward arch. Rupert actually gives two of these pieces in case you screw it up. That was a bit fiddly cutting that all out. There's little tabs all the way across here, and you've got to do the cuts on the back and the cuts on the front, and it's a little more fidgety than other pieces I've worked with, and so I can see why he gives you 2 pieces for that. The other thing I did is I went in again with a, let's see if we can see this. I went in with a pencil and I just colored in the whole back there so that when you see in here, you're not looking straight at yellow cardboard again. It's a little darker in there because that is colored like that. So you really can't make it out there, which is fine, and I'm sure that's what Rupert counted on when he put the model together, that there's really no need for detail back there because you're never gonna, the average person is never gonna peek in there, you're not gonna see anything. So the North Porch itself glued on to the nave. Once you put it together after you put the doorway in there, and then the roof was a separate piece up here. Interestingly, the roof doesn't have tabs on this side, and so it doesn't quite, there's nothing to glue there. You can't quite see it. When you catch it on the shadows, you can see that you don't quite hit the roof on that side, and so I really would have liked to have had, if I had been thinking about this before, I would have put my own little gluing tabs on there, at least down here, and actually glued those into the roof. But it looks good enough that I don't think anybody's going to notice, and I don't think it's going to become a problem. So there you go. After this, what do we move into? After this, we begin to put together the towers that go on either side here. And we put together the chapter house, which is an octagonal structure that goes right here. And then there's a bridge that goes over as well that's partially modeled. So those are the next things up on the docket. Again, I think it looks pretty good. I can see all kinds of little mistakes I've made, and I'm sure I will do this model a second time to try and address the mistakes. But generally speaking, it's going together really well, and I'm really pretty happy with it. So far, so good. So anyway, that's the progress this evening. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.